Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Happy Tuesday.
Oh, happy Tuesday indeed.
I know, right? It's like, oh, it's been a long one. My little one's teething pretty badly and woke me up at 5. And I'm like, oh, buddy. Yeah.
Those are tough. We went through a phase last week where everyone was up at like 4 just for kicks.
Oh,
So
just for fun.
yeah,
Yeah, those are good times.
yeah, yeah.
I love those. You gotta love those, right? Oh my gosh, I swear.
Either that or you'll go crazy. So you got to learn to love them. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know. Today's a long one. Last night I curled up and went to bed with them, so I think tonight's going to be a repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know too much about the Toolbox Series, but something we started doing every Tuesday, really to reach out to experts and put tools in parents' toolboxes, because at Prince Lionheart, we're going to be 50 years old next year. And I'm now a parent. I'm a second generation Lionheart, and I realized that we're all winging it as parents. My parents were, I am, everyone's winging it, doing the best we can, usually calling on what we know from our childhoods. And, you know, when you know better, you do better. So we're reaching out to experts in various fields, and you just happen to be one of them. I wish I knew you before I got pregnant for the first time, because I felt like it was a license to eat whatever I wanted. So my firstborn was grown on $6 burgers and Taco Bell.
Hey.
Giving hope to all you out there who may be
Yeah.
eating one right now. If it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in your face. He is now super healthy, super health conscious, and would prefer an apple over dessert. So
Yeah.
it was okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of grace in this process.
There
There's
is a lot
best
of grace.
practices, but like there's a lot of grace, you know?
They take what they need regardless of what you're putting in your body. But I learned, when you know better, you do better. I learned for second and third. So there you go.
Yeah.
So tell us about you. How did you find your way along this path of nutrition and specifically pregnancy?
Yeah, so I am a second career dietitian. I was actually pre-med originally in undergrad, and then took a pretty hard left turn and went into nonprofit world, and did some leadership development with college students. And then through that, I had to raise my own salary. And so then I found my way into fundraising, because people said, oh, you know how to ask for money without freaking out. And so then I got into the fundraising world and did that for a while. And within that space, you get to do like event planning and communications and, you know, all kinds of various things. But the last organization I worked for was a social services organization here in Dallas. And my office overlooked the line to the food pantry. And I just remember on Fridays and at the end of the month, there would always be just this long snaking line. And as I learned more about the people that we were serving, I saw how they were choosing between food, medical care, housing. You know, these were real choices that they had to make. And really that's what kind of stirred in me again, this like health professions, like what is there out there. And so I ended up going back to school to become a dietitian, and fell in love with everything about the field. Really just like love all things about nutrition. And originally I was planning on going back and working in the nonprofit sector, and the world just had different plans for me. And I did a variety of things in the field of nutrition. I taught at a community college, and worked at a food startup, and I mean, literally, I've done everything. Not for a long time, but I've done everything. But had a private practice the whole time. And as I was going along with it, I was realizing that all of my friends, who were kind of like the low-hanging fruit of places to talk about what I was doing and to help me market, were all going through this pregnancy stage.
Gotcha.
And as I began to kind of dive more into that, and hearing them ask questions about trying to conceive and being pregnant, and did my own like deep dive research, just saw what a beautiful, fragile season this is in someone's life. And it is really an honor and a privilege to be able to walk through that with women. I think about, you know, just how like the hormones, and you're going crazy, and you're second guessing everything, and the mom guilt kicks in like the second you start trying to conceive, and it's kind of like, how is that even possible?
And you're nauseous and don't feel like eating.
Right. Like all of that combined. And to just be like a safe, trusted place for women to both say like, you're doing great. You trust me, you're doing so much better than you think you're doing. And also here's a few things that we can do to kind of level it up, and to kind of calm the crazy of that season. So that's the kind of medium length version of how I got here.
So, wow. So you've been very involved in the food space. And
yes.
And that's super cool. Well, I'm glad we have you here, because there are a lot of, I think there's a, funny enough, I think it also depends on when you are pregnant, because it reminds me of like, if you wait in it long enough, something's either good for you or bad for you. But there are a lot of things that they tell you not to eat, right? And then you see people like in Japan living off of sushi when they're pregnant, and it's like, wait, what? Is this really okay or really not okay? So we've received questions from some folks. If anyone who's live would like to ask a question, go ahead and please ask away, and we'll do our best to answer your question. But we do have some questions, so I want to make sure we run through them and hit them. And if, let's see, let's just start with the first one. Someone who's trying to get pregnant, so not yet pregnant. What does the ideal diet look like, and what supplements should I be taking?
Yeah. So of course the party line with nutrition is, the answer is always it depends, which is maddening to everyone. But so, you know, I think there's a few things to think about when we think about fertility supporting diet. So you want to look for things that are anti-inflammatory and sorry, that was my Rochester accent. Come on. Wow. Did you hear that? Inflammatory, anti-inflammatory and really nourishing. So very nutrient rich. And so things that I will always lean towards would be like omega-3s. So think about like your salmon, think about eggs are a great source of nutrition. Make sure you eat those yolks too. Don't throw those out. That's where all the good stuff is. Think about leafy greens, very colorful fruits and vegetables. I will actually say full fat dairy is, we see evidence that that is actually better for fertility, especially if you're going through IVF or some kind of fertility assistance. Full fat especially is going to be better for you there. Nuts and seeds. I mean, nothing like earth shattering as I go through it, you know, but really thinking you don't need to be cutting out a bunch of stuff. You don't need to go gluten-free or dairy-free, or, I mean, as a universal rule. Obviously, everything is individualized, but in general, think about omega-3s, a lot of antioxidants through fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds, things like that. And then when it comes to supplements, again, that's super personal. So the most important thing that I would check out is to make sure that you're not deficient in anything. So making sure you're getting lab work done, you know, how's your vitamin D status? How's your iron status?
That's a good point.
Kind of doing like, you know, the, like a hormone panel and a thyroid panel and all those things, because we can bring supplements into the picture, but we don't just want to throw them at you. You got to know what we're really working with, and we want to be intentional. So I hesitate to give anything specific. There are definitely things that can support, but they are so individualized that I try not to give like blanket recommendations there.
Is folic acid one of the ones that like everyone should kind of do when trying to conceive?
Yes,
because I feel like I did that.
Yes, prenatal. Definitely take a prenatal.
Okay, so yeah, prenatal. And there are, like, I remember with one of my OBs, she's like, look, if you can't, because I suck at swallowing pills. She's like, do a gummy. And I'm like, really? Like, I can do that? And she's like, yeah, do a Fred Flintstone. Just get it in you. I'm like, okay. I drew the line at Fred, but you know, I did a gummy, and then I did other stuff on future pregnancies. But I know that that's pretty important. Do you know? Because I don't even remember. And here I've gone through it several times. Do they do the panels to see deficiencies when you first go to your OB or anything, or not so much?
No. You're definitely going to need to ask for that.
Okay, so it's super proactive. So we're talking people got to be proactive to do that. Okay.
Yeah, proactive.
Good stuff.
And then also another thing that's important to remember with fertility is that diet and lifestyle changes take a long time to go into effect. If you think about how long it takes your egg to fully mature, it's 90 days. And so, you know, a lot of people, they like eat really well for 2 weeks, and then they take a pregnancy test and they're like, nothing changed. I'm like, yes, try another 3 months, and then we can have the conversation. And so, you know, if you're starting to think like, hey, we're probably going to start trying soon, now's the time to get on that good prenatal. Now's the time to make those dietary changes so that kind of that first egg is as good as it can be.
Gotcha. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tip for people that I just learned about. And when you know better, you do better. Only because my kids don't like the texture of the yolk. And I know when you're pregnant, sometimes that textures and smells can be a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you make a great point about the omega-3s, because a buddy of mine who's in like the health business, that was his number one for pregnancy, because he said the baby actually takes the omega-3s from your brain cells and from your cells and doesn't give it back. And that's one thing that you have to like supplement, because it doesn't give it back. So I'm like, sweet. But it's an egg spinner and it makes a golden egg. So it takes the egg when it's raw and it spins it. You can also shake it, but it spins it and then it comes out yellow once you've boiled it. So that's a great way to get the yolk.
No idea.
Yeah, right? I know. Amazon.
Man.
Yeah. A friend told me about it. And I'm like, that's amazing, because my daughter doesn't like the yolk. And I'm like, but that's where all the good stuff is. So that's just a tip for anyone who can't stomach the texture of the yolk when you're pregnant.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are the same way. They will like eat all of the white and then they give the yolk. I'm like, no. Yeah.
At least we have a dog to chuck it to. But
someone's getting the nutrition. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. So if I'm pregnant, when should I start taking vitamins? We just addressed that. Prenatals, before pregnant, folic acid, which vitamins should I be supplementing? Check your deficiencies, be proactive about that. That's not something that's a normal standard procedure, but it's a great idea. Makes so much sense. Okay, foods to avoid while pregnant. Don't know if you have a hot list, but they were definitely different when I was pregnant in different decades.
Yeah. I highly recommend Emily Oster's book, Expecting Better. And she is an economist who went through her own like fertility issues and was like, okay, she's really good with research, right? So she just like dove into the research. And what I really like about her book is that she really helps you weigh the risks and benefits. So we can say like all the foods to avoid that the OBGYN like just passes across the table to you, don't eat these. Like there is an element of truth to them, but the actual risk is usually pretty low. And so when I talk to my clients, I say, there's two types of things that can go wrong with food during pregnancy. Almost all of them are foodborne illnesses, right? So first, like think about good food safety, right? Like don't eat food from a gas station, like fresh food from a gas station. Just like that's never going to be a good idea. But there's two types of things. There's the foods that will harm you and foods that will potentially harm the baby. And so when it's things that might harm you, I'm like, that you do you, like a juice there if you want. So that's going to be like the salmonella and the E. coli. And so when you think about like a poached egg, right, salmonella, I say go for it if you want it. And that's the the medium rare steak, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you want it, like go for it. I also totally respect if you're freaked out by that, and like don't want to take the risk, because no one wants that on their conscience. But things like raw shellfish, 100% no. Don't even, not worth the risk, right? Like that's definitely going to hurt the baby if anything goes wrong. So my like absolute no's would be, drugs, alcohol, especially. I'll even say alcohol in the first trimester. Like if you really want to take a few sips of wine, we can talk about that after first trimester, but first trimester, absolutely not. And then raw shellfish and like having too much mercury. Right. And those are pretty much the only things that I say are completely off limits. Everything else is a risk value proposition. Which I know again is like super wishy-washy, but like you can, the other thing, unpasteurized dairy. So like raw milk, cheese. I would definitely avoid those. Cause again, the risk when it comes to food safety is just really high. So, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty short list, because the list they'll give you like includes coffee, and everyone's like, oh, coffee, And every OB has a different stance on it, but they're like, look, if you want a latte, have a latte,
Yeah.
Anyway,
so the general like recommendations are less than 200 milligrams of caffeine a day, which if you're going to Starbucks, that's like a grande of whatever you're getting. So, you know, if you're doing coffee at home, it might be a little less caffeine than that. It might be a little bit more, but you know, Starbucks Brew's pretty heavy one, usually about a grande. There is some evidence that even as low as 50 milligrams can cause harm to the baby, but there's basically like there's no safe number that's 100% guaranteed, but the odds of anything harming are very, very, very low.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I like your short list because that's like the don't eat these, and then everything else, read a book.
Read a book, use a little common sense, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I wish I had known that because eating that steak well done was just not fun.
Oh, no, you basically just don't eat beef.
Yeah, it just wasn't fun. Okay, so you mentioned mercury. What fish can pregnant women eat, and how much is recommended? Was a question.
Yeah, eat all the fish. I mean, fish in general is one of the better things you can enjoy during pregnancy. Very mineral rich, selenium specifically,
omega-3s too,
in seafood. And so, you know, I would say aim for 2 to 3 times a week. Usually with my patients, I just say like as much as you can stomach, because usually that's like the limiting factor. They're like, I can choke it down once a week. I'm like, great, run with that. So yeah, as much as you can stomach. When it comes to mercury, the issues are going to be cold water, large fish. That's like essentially how we think about it. So tuna is a big one, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Swordfish, king mackerel. There's one other that I'm totally drawing a blank on. Those are the ones that I would just kind of avoid altogether. When it comes to canned tuna, up to 6 ounces a week, which is still pretty lenient for most people. But there's also a brand that I really love called Safe Catch, and they do testing on all of their fish. And so they can guarantee 0 mercury in any of their cans. And so, I mean, when I was pregnant, for whatever reason, like fish and eggs, I loved. I was like the weird one. But I like lived off that tuna fish, loved it. They've got like different flavors. They've got canned salmon. So super convenient. The pouches, if like the smell is a little off-putting at first, like the pouch is a good way to kind of put it in there without noticing. Yeah.
Can you do it now since you ate a lot of it during pregnancy? Yeah.
Yeah, I still enjoy it. Not nearly as much as I did during pregnancy, though, ironically. Yeah.
It's like I still enjoy raw almonds, but not as much. I mean, I was like a giant almond in my 3rd pregnancy. Yeah. It's like, geez. Yeah. Okay. I guess still bodes true. Everything in moderation, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. One of the questions we just addressed it. Do I really have to avoid tuna? Well, we just gave you an option. Deli meat, soft cheeses we addressed in terms of unpasteurized. Deli meat is listeria, right, which crosses the, and then sushi, runny eggs, medium rare steak. So we've dealt with that. Yeah. And someone read that pineapple can induce labor or cause a miscarriage. Is that true?
It is not. It is not. It is an old wives' tale. Also, it's funny because the property that they will claim can cause this in pineapple is like most abundant in the core, and no one eats the core. And so, yeah. But no, totally an old wives' tale. I mean, trust me, I have been asked about every single food. Can I eat this during pregnancy? And pineapple is one of the funny ones. Grapes is another one that someone told me the other day. And I was like, what? Like I Googled it to figure out what people were saying about it. And I was like, no, there is no science there. Nope.
Oh, wow. Well, geez. Well, spicy Thai food induced my labor. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a little bit of merit to that, down the road, but it's not going to be something that's going to cause a miscarriage. I think that's one of the things that people hear, like, oh, if it can induce labor, I shouldn't be eating those things until I'm ready to induce labor. Like I want to be careful at 26 weeks, things like that. And it's just not going to do that.
Right. Okay. All right. This is a topic that I learned the hard way, unfortunately. How can I prevent gestational diabetes?
Oh, I mean, unfortunately, there's no guarantees. So I think an important thing to remember is that gestational diabetes is a hormone issue. You can't control your hormones in pregnancy. I mean, the hormones are all over the place, right? And so diet and lifestyle definitely play a factor. Yeah. But there are women who eat like garbage, who maybe don't weigh what the doctors say they should weigh, and they do not have gestational diabetes. And there are women who have that perfect basketball and basically drink green juice and end up with GD. So first, I just want to say, like, it is not your fault. It is not like a moral failure of yours that you ended up with GD, and people have healthy babies all the time with it. Yeah. So I just like to say all that because I think there's a lot of guilt that women internalize with it. Now, that said, the best thing you can do is manage your blood sugar. And so that is what I say, don't eat naked carbs. So if you have carbs, you want to make sure you're pairing it with protein and a fat to kind of help that slow the absorption of that. You want to be loading up with as much fiber really as you can handle. That's going to also help slow it down. Those are going to be some of your best recommendations. So like overall, every time you eat, well balanced, right? You want more than like one nutrient or one food group. When you're having something that's going to help balance that blood sugar, not skipping meals, and eating a good amount of fiber, and then move when you can. For some women, that means taking a little bit of a walk or doing some gentle yoga. For other women, that means like going to a HIIT workout, but move as you can, and, try to keep your body, more like limber than anything. It's like, you don't want to get stuck in a position because, man, when that belly grows, you will get stuck in positions. And so making sure that you can, continue to move and relieve a lot of that like joint pain and aches and whatnot, that kind of, it all sort of works together, but there's no surefire way.
Yeah. I found that blueberries really help kind of balance, I guess, they're kind of low glycemic or something. I don't know, but I had it twice. And that helped a lot. And it was kind of, I took a page out of the diabetics book, and blueberries were one that were really good at helping balance blood sugars.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely higher in fiber as far as fruit goes. And so I can see that. But
they were a little magic, and still, because it was one of the few fruits I could eat. But it was, I was like from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with blueberries.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. What do we have next? We have, how can I prevent preeclampsia? Oh, that's
okay.
That's another big one.
Another similar one. So the biggest thing with preeclampsia is going to be making sure you're getting adequate protein throughout the pregnancy. And there's also, so protein is made up of amino acids. For those of you who remember your science classes. And one of the amino acids is called glycine. Now, glycine, for most people, their bodies can make it, no problem. When you become pregnant, the needs get so high that it becomes what we call conditionally essential, meaning that pregnant women need to actually eat it, or their body cannot make enough. You can't keep up with it. And so there's evidence that not enough glycine can actually cause preeclampsia or be a risk factor for it. So how do you get it, right? Like, obviously that's the next question. So you're going to find it in protein foods, but you're going to find it in all the things that someone told you shouldn't eat. So like tough cuts of meat, the skin of chicken, right? My phone told me I've been on Instagram too long.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So it's the fatty and the connective tissue of animal protein is where you're going to find the most glycine. And what might help make that connection is it's high in collagen. So another option is to take a collagen supplement,
which is tasteless, right?
Which is tasteless.
Put it in their coffee.
Yeah. Put it in smoothies, coffee, oatmeal, soups. Like, yeah, you can definitely hide it in a lot of places. So, those are the big things. But also you want to look at your overall lifestyle and all of that. It's not just like, well, just load up on the collagen and you'll be fine.
I had no idea.
It's the whole picture.
All right, I had no idea that was the thing, but that's great. Okay, so what does someone do when nothing sounds good to eat, or they're constantly nauseous?
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
I know. It's just, like, I'm so sorry. I know.
Okay, so my general rule is do the best you can.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes the best you can is saltines and Gatorade. And sometimes the best you can is like a salmon salad, right? So do the best you can. Getting in some nutrients is better than nothing, even if they're not the highest quality nutrients. In the first trimester, honestly, like your prenatal is the biggest thing. So do whatever you have to do to get that prenatal in, whether it's taking the gummy or using a powder, you know, something like that, like get it in.
Sure.
Because the baby needs those micronutrients the most. That's usually where people are struggling with the nausea, which is why I bring it up. But do the best you can. So what I would say is aim for easy carbs. So crackers, bread, popcorn, oatmeal. Those are kind of some of the ones that I see most often with clients. Wait a few minutes, 5, 10, 15, kind of depending on where you are in life. And then add a bit of protein to the mix. And so the protein is going to usually be really hard on an empty stomach, but once you put those carbs in, it will help them stay longer. So that could be a cheese stick, that could be an egg, that could be some nuts, you know, a wide variety of choices. Again, when nothing sounds good, usually meat is one of the first things that people have an aversion to. And so it's hard for them to imagine, like, what is a good source of protein when I can't think of anything. But those plant-based sources, totally great option for you. So that from like an eating perspective, it's, you know, don't let yourself get too hungry or an empty stomach, because that can be one of the biggest triggers. Get outside as much as you can, even if it's only for 10 seconds, like just that fresh air really helps with the nausea. Citrus and mint smells can really help. And I also know a lot of people who have done acupuncture or gotten one of those motion sickness bracelets. It's actually helped. So there's a wide variety of things when the nausea hits really bad. But I tell people, get in those carbs and add protein as soon as you can, as soon as you can kind of stomach it, to help it last longer. Give yourself a lot of grace. Do the best you can. And smoothies are like my best tip, because they're cold. You can sip on them slowly. You don't have to, you know, you're not taking big bites necessarily. You can hide a whole lot of nutrients in a smoothie, something like that.
Okay, that's great. You mentioned something, I just wanted to ask about it. You said the nausea can be often kind of caused by the micronutrients deficiency, so that's why it was important to get a prenatal. Did I hear that right?
Oh, no, what I was trying, and maybe I said that. That's not what I meant, if that's what I said. I would say that during your first trimester is when the micronutrients are the most important, and that's also usually when the nausea is the highest. And so if you can't eat, at the very least, get in that prenatal, because that's going to kind of cover a multitude of sins, so to speak. For not being able to eat because of the nausea. Okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, so so we started with trying to conceive, and now we're at postpartum. What can someone do to return to pre-pregnancy weight without compromising the baby in general, or even while breastfeeding? So like this is, I mean, no one likes this answer. And the biggest thing is give yourself grace. Probably like 10 times the amount of time. I'm just saying grace and headlights. Give yourself grace. The big lights. I think it's important to remember, like it took a while to get where you were, right? Like people say like 9 months in, 9 months out, and that's a help. That's much better than you should be looking good by the time your maternity leave ends. But even 9 months is not usually a long enough time. For some women, until they've weaned, their body just like the hormones are holding on to things and just kind of unhappy. And most women I know don't start to feel like themselves until 15, 18 months, even 2 years later. And so to have expectations on yourself before that is a little unrealistic. Never mind the fact that many women have already gotten pregnant again in that time. You know, it's like if you're having multiple, sometimes you're getting pregnant again. So I think it's really important to remember to have grace, to give a little perspective, to give honor to what your body has done. And also remember, kind of going back to your story about eating Taco Bell and burgers, you know, like, yes, the baby will take what the baby needs, but that leaves you completely depleted.
Yep.
And the baby will be fine, but you're hurting. And
right.
you need to re-nourish your body. And
Yeah.
so that means you really don't want to be cutting corners. You don't want to be adding stress to your life. And quite frankly, like, not getting enough calories is stress, right? So just kind of remembering all that. Also remember, you're not sleeping, which causes all kinds of issues when it comes to metabolism and hunger and all of that. So that's a very long prelude to eat at least 3 meals a day. You know, right? Don't let yourself get too hungry. Don't skip meals. Prioritize some self-care, which is like, I really just want to slap people when I hear them say that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, but like that, those are the answers. Those really are the answers. And for a lot of women, that's just not practical. And I think kind of remembering that everything is a trade-off, you know, and the women you see that look amazing right away, it's a trade-off. They have 20 people helping them, and it's literally their job, right? Because you see a lot of influencers and, you know, people in the media, it's literally their job to get back to it, and they have sacrificed something to look that good. It is so hard to not feel yourself. It's so hard. And I don't ever want to minimize that for women, because, you know, it's all fine and good to say like, okay, it's just going to take a little while, except when every day you feel so bad about it. And I don't want to minimize that. But consider eating and moving your body, self-care. Consider sleep, you know, in the mix. And I would say, if you notice that your milk supply is going down, then you need to think about adding in more calories. It's not always the answer. Like, there's plenty of things.
And hydrate too. I mean, it's something that we never really stop. I think just in general, we never drink enough water. And then when you're breastfeeding, you need even more.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
I remember it was like the second I had baby on boob, I was like, I haven't drank anything in a week.
I know.
I was like so parched. It was just
I'm spitting powder. I'm totally spitting powder right now. Like, because I never remember to drink, even when I'm not breastfeeding. But I mean, it's crazy. And I think that's so true. Like, the way I thought about it was, the baby takes what they need, right? But they can deplete your bones of calcium. They can deplete your teeth of, like, you know, the good stuff in the enamel, whatever. My dentist told me, you know, a lot of pregnant women, she saw me after pregnancy. She's like, good job. You know, your teeth are good. And I'm like, what? Why would they change? Oh no, during pregnancy, those little babies take what they need and they leave you with whatever. So, so it's really important to just remember that they're getting what they need. You can drop the mom guilt, but you need to make sure that you put it back in you, so that, you know, you can be around it to make sure that these, as I described them to my older kids, they're just useless. That's why they need so much attention. They're just useless because, you know, to avoid the whole sibling jealousy thing. They're just useless little creatures. You got to help them out. True. Whatever works, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Everyone, if you have any questions, you can find Katie at, I wrote it down because there were a lot of periods in it, but it is at the.pregnancy.dietitian. And super excited to meet you, and thank you for joining us today. And I learned a lot. It won't be information that I can employ in my life because I am done, but I'm happy to pass it on to friends and family. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It was good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, take care. And for everyone else, we'll be meeting back here on Tuesday with the potties to talk about potty training. So join us, and until next time, take care. Good night, Katie.
Good night.